Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the City of Monona's Community Media Committee meeting for Thursday, February 12th, 2026. We've got quorum. Will, you've got the roll, correct?
Correct.
All right. In that case, as usual, we'll start off with, I'll take an approval to approve the minutes from our last meeting of January 8th. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll
Fantastic.
second.
Second from me. Perfect. Oh, good. Citizens here. Fantastic. Did anyone notice any changes that you'd like to have made to the minutes? All right. In that case, all in favor of accepting the minutes as seen in our meeting packet, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Fantastic. Moving on to the appearance section, do we have anyone from the community that is going to be appearing? I
Don't see anybody, no.
wasn't notified of anything. Okay, great. Then I'll move on to number 4 on the agenda, unfinished business. And this is kind of fun. Will gets to give us an update on some of the changes he's made to the YouTube videos. Already, I'm hearing a lot of good feedback on this. So if you remember last time we met, we were talking about ways that we could make it easier for citizens to keep up with what committees are doing, what the council is doing, the school board meetings are already sort of doing this sort of thing, but the goal was to come up with a way for citizens to jump ahead in a recording to the point where they are interested in listening, rather than guessing or sitting through the whole recording. So Will, let us know what you've discovered since our last meeting.
Yes, I'm just getting the last bit up here of what to show. Hold on. Okay, I will share my screen and I'll just walk through how I did it, just for those who care to know. I thought it was interesting, so I walked away from the meeting and thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder how easy it is. And a quick Google search got me a quick answer. And of course, ChatGPT was involved. So let me share. Why does it feel like every time it's different? All right, you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Does everyone else see Will's screen?
Yep.
So let's just pretend that I loaded a video up to YouTube already and I want to get the transcripts. So what I can do, let me just reload this here. Is actually, I have to pick one that doesn't already have it done. Okay, so there's nothing on this meeting, no description or anything. So I go click more, show transcripts, and then over here, let me get you guys out of the way. It gives me every word that was spoken
Oh my
all the way
gosh.
down here with the time codes. And you can see there's tons of time code, like looks like every 10 seconds or so. So, but what I do is go in here, I won't do it all, but I highlight all of them, copy, and then oh, come on. Then I go into ChatGPT and I say, here is the transcript and time code for this was the particular ad hoc public safety building committee. Please take the transcript and time codes and condense them down to only the highlights of the meeting. Keep the format in YouTube chapter format. Now, if I had the agenda, which I've done, I say, please match chapters with agenda items, which I've done for like council. And then it'll look at the agenda, it'll take the agenda document and then look at the time code and what people said and match up the chapters. So I paste this all in. Goes. I mean, it's an hour of talking. Ooh. And here's what it came back with. Here's a condensed highlight only version in clean YouTube format based on the major moments and content shifts in the meeting. So it gave me a lot of content here. Gives me an option. Do I want to tighten it up? Do you do you want a super punchy 6 to 8 chapters max? I say super punchy 6 chapters max. So then it gave me 6 chapters, which it only went up to 31 minutes, which is what this one only went up to too. So they talked about that last item for a long time. But that's how I did it. And then, like I said, if you want to add the agenda, you can do that. The tricky part is you can't, so yeah, here, right here. If I go down, whoop, the rest of the meeting is here. So what I have found is that if the meeting is over like 58 minutes or an hour roughly, definitely not more than an hour, ChatGPT can handle that. And it says too much content. So I have to go through and basically make 2 separate prompts. So I'll do it once and I'll say, take this transcript, which is like 50 minutes worth, and make chapters out of that. And then I'll go and take the next 50 minutes to, let's say, an hour 30. So whatever's left of the meeting and say, make chapters of that. And then I'll copy and paste them into YouTube, clean it up a little bit, take out spacing, make sure the time codes are formatted the same. And then I'll cross-reference it and delete some of the highlights probably that are in there if they're only like 2 minutes apart or something, then unless it's an actual agenda item that's important. So it takes a little work, but a lot of this is done through AI as no real big surprise, right? Um, but I don't have to, obviously watch the meeting. I don't have to go through the transcript myself and take the time codes that work. Um, so it's an effective tool. I would say it takes me 15 minutes, depending on the meeting length. Another catch was I was going to do it with the school board meeting last month, and it was like a 2.5 hour meeting, even more than that, if I remember correctly. Either way, YouTube didn't actually transcribe it for like 3 days later. It finally got finished transcribing it all. So if it's a longer meeting, it doesn't transcribe that quickly. So you have to wait for the transcription. Does that make sense? Is that cool? Has anyone done that before and was like, yeah, I've seen that, or
Will, could I ask a question?
yes.
Um, I did see a couple versions of this for different meetings, and it's great. I mean, it's just makes an amazing difference in being able to find what you're looking for. And the question I have is that it's been several years since I worked with YouTube, but it used to be notoriously bad at captioning things. And I'm wondering if you and or any of the committee chairs or participants in these meetings have just done any kind of random or selective spot checking to verify that these are accurate?
Like the transcripts.
Just whatever the information is, like just verify that the time codes and the agenda items or whatever the product is that you're generating here does in fact comport with reality.
Right. So that's the other part. And I did do some very quick spot checking, but I did not watch the meeting for, 10 minutes at each chapter point to make sure that it happened. So yeah, there is the possibility that maybe, a chapter or two or whatever aren't exactly where they need to be.
I was going to
There,
suggest that if this becomes a standard practice, which I think it should, that maybe one step in the workflow is just send an email to the committee chair of whatever committee you're posting and say, here are the timestamps and the agenda items. Would you just check this real quick and make sure there's no mistakes there? And not to listen word for word to every minute of the meeting, but just to those, items that are
right.
highlighted.
Well, and to your point, one I did catch that I didn't even really have to listen to was I don't remember what committee it was, but essentially they talked about stuff. I had it laid out. And then when they went to discussion at the end for like department head report, they talked about the same stuff again. And all of a sudden, that part time code was like up by 2 minutes. Like all of a sudden they put that at the two, they had that as a time code of 2 minutes. So you go like 10, 14, 32, 48, and then 2 minutes for this one thing. So the time code got screwed up because I think it was saying like, oh, this is the content that was talked about up here. It's the same thing in it. So it's not foolproof in like in catching those types of things. Um, so you do it, there definitely needs to be a little more um, after the fact checking, right, to make sure. And I haven't done it to all the meetings. Like I've started mainly with just council and plan commission and then testing it out on some of these other ones, playing around with it with like the ad hoc meeting and stuff. I know Susan, you had your hand up. I'll finish my thought. And then we go. One thing Katie did notice when I did the school board meeting was that it was one of my first ones. There was so many chapters that she was getting lots of commercials because those chapter points can ping YouTube to put a commercial right there because that's what they do, right? They put ads in spots. So when you make a chapter, all of a sudden it goes, "Oh, cool. Well, that's a break point. We'll put an ad in there for you." So that's another thing to consider is so now since Katie told me that, I'm trying to be mindful of not making 8 chapter points and only making, I guess 6 at the last one at the most. Um,
I noticed a difference for what it's worth
that's good.
after we talked. Yeah.
Can I, are you
Susan,
saying that the fewer, just to finish this point on what Will is saying, are you saying that the fewer chapters there are, the fewer commercials you will probably get? Okay. I wanted to make sure. All right. And then are we ready to go on to Susan's comment? Or Will, did you have
Sure.
another? Okay, go ahead, Susan.
It was just a question, and I think you kind of answered it, but I just wanted to make sure I understood. If we're, for instance, in a board meeting, and let's say we do a discussion item under discussion, and then let's say we take that same item, which would be unusual, but it could happen, and it's also listed as an action item, so we're technically talking about the exact same thing. What
Mhm.
happens?
Yeah, that's kind of what happened at that one committee meeting where the time code got weird because it started referencing the same material,
Uh,
talking about the same material essentially in 2 different places in the meeting. So then it got weird and was like, oh, wait, the time code is up here. And I'm not too sure how that happened. Maybe it was how I prompted. Maybe it was just how that meeting kind of rolled. It was just far more of an open discussion meeting and not necessarily strictly to the agenda, and so that's why it made it confusing. But I'm assuming it might get a little confused and um, have 2 different parts, or it'll chapter, something that says, you know, action on playground equipment, and then down here, discussion playground equipment, and that maybe could be confusing to people watching too, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a chance you could put in the prompt if you notice it's a repeat thing to like note in the beginning, like if the same topic comes up more than once, notate in both sections or something like that. I'm not sure how to word it, but if you're noticing that happening
Right.
more than once, you
When
could.
you're asking ChatGPT, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've really kind of been thinking about, like as I'm driving, I'm like, man, now I know why like UW has all these ads for prompt engineer because that's what it's all about. It's about being as efficient as possible and telling it exactly what you want and the exact parameters and the exact verbiage and just everything down to a T. And it'll give it to you, but if you're not right on target, it's going to give you more than you need, and you got to kind of whittle it down. So that's one thing I've noticed is my prompting sucks because I don't really know how to prompt other than just do it and then try it again and then try it again. And
Like I haven't done it. I have heard this works, but I've not tried it. That if you like do a bunch of prompting back and forth at the very end, you can ask, "What should I have prompted at the beginning to get the correct this result?"
oh, that's a good idea. I've heard that same thing in similar of like, I want to do this. What should my prompt be?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
mhm.
I've heard that one too.
Yeah,
And
the
that's kind of
important,
why I wanted to like after this move on to just discussing about how people are using it. What have you found that works cool? How are you using it? And if it's not just Chat GPT, but just for fun, because I feel like I know what I know and I know I don't know a lot. And I don't know if I don't necessarily
yeah,
need to know a lot, but
right.
it's certainly not going anywhere, at least for the next 3 years for this administration. They're going to forge ahead as fast as they can.
Well, how many videos on YouTube currently have this new, I'll call it a feature?
Only like 5 or 6.
Only about 5 or 6.
And
And
because of all these reasons we've said, like we do need to spot check it a little bit. We
right,
do, I can't just be ripping them out and then posting them
yeah,
out there and then all of a sudden people are like, well, this doesn't match
yeah.
up.
Is there it and it feels like, right, it's a new feature, but I also feel like this is a really wonderful new service that is being provided to our citizens. And that makes me think about something Bill suggested. Bill identified a risk and had a suggestion for preventing that from happening, right? So there's the rollout then of this service. And maybe when Will is ready, maybe we should think about, or perhaps someone in the room here might have an idea like, I feel like this is something that we should advertise and make citizens understand how this committee has really brought them a fabulous service. Maybe something at the minimum, I'm thinking, Will, you might want to even make an appearance at a future city council meeting right at the top of the agenda during the appearance section and just run the council through what you've just shared with us now with a little graphic, explanation of what people can expect. Probably about 80 people tune into each council meeting, I'm thinking. I thought I saw on your statistics.
That's about right. Yeah. Well,
50,
and
50 to 80, maybe. Yeah.
to Bill's point, having committee members run through it,
Yeah.
uh, I think it could also, I feels like if it's going to be something like that, that we now implement it with all meetings,
Right.
it's probably going to be worth and needing to discuss this with all department heads, to
Yep.
talk to Neil and say,
Yep.
is this something we really want to do as a city? And even
100%.
though it's a great service and why you'd say
No.
no, I don't know,
So
but
100%.
I don't
Yes.
think it's my decision to make alone.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And honestly, I think Bill's suggestion is fantastic because as someone who chairs more than one committee, this would be a service to me to get a very quick synopsis, a reminder, a refresher of what we just talked about, so that going into the next, month's meeting or the next meeting, you can have a better meeting the next time. And for department leaders who are, burdened by putting together the meeting minutes, I mean, that's a job that takes up a lot of time. And now you've just showed them how to streamline that. So my recommendation, and then I want to hear what others have, and of course Will, my recommendation would be to follow what Will just said, to first introduce this at a department head meeting, let everybody know how their committee meetings are now going to be or could be possibly affected by this. What does this mean to the department chair? What does it mean to the alder? What does it mean to citizens? Is there any discussion from the floor? Any thoughts, concerns, questions, feedback? Katie, your microphone went off. I thought maybe that's a signal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. We use in the school district, we use Gemini because it is closed and we know that we can protect some data in there. It's not being used to like improve Gemini or ChatGPT's, responses. So Will, I think, you have you have access to that because you have a Google account with the school district. So two things. One, I would say we have made a priority to cite when we're using Gemini or generative AI. And so, Will, I can send you that language that we use. I think it would be important to just put like on the YouTube page or somewhere on the city page just to say like it could be used. It could be, it's always edited, it's always reviewed, but it's, I think, important for people to know like we're using AI. And the other thing, just thinking, well, maybe we can talk about this in the next section, Will, where we talk about how people are using it in general. I'll save that part. But we do have like an email signatures or documents, even slideshows we're using now, just citing that we're using it, including language like a generative AI tool may have assisted in drafting language for this document or project or whatever. The content was thoroughly reviewed and edited, and full responsibility is taken for its accuracy, clarity, and final wording. That's what we use.
Yeah, I'd appreciate the language. I think
Sure.
the city hasn't gone down that route, and I think there's some mixed feelings about AI in the city just because, I'm sure you guys have talked about
It's
it.
new. Yeah.
In municipalities in general, I have across my email all the time about AI use in municipalities, and here's a webinar on AI and what you need to know and the laws with it, dealing with, city government and public records and yada yada.
Mhm.
And I believe, if I'm not wrong, our IT contractor would rather not have us use any outside AI just because of the vulnerabilities. But that hasn't necessarily taken effect, but that it's just discussions that are happening.
Any other comments, concerns, questions, feedback from the floor? Will, I don't believe, or is there the need for this body to make any sort of recommendation for next steps?
I don't, I guess I would choose not to. I don't, you know, who knows whose purview this is, but I don't necessarily think it's ours to necessarily.
One of those next steps could be that you bring this to the attention of the department heads.
Yeah, I wouldn't, right. I mean, that's going to be my
That's
next
what I
step.
would, yeah,
Yeah.
it is their decision, right? Neil's and Nancy's and all that stuff. So, and for you to do that, I guess you don't need a formal request from this body, I don't believe, right?
I mean, I don't think so. It
Yeah.
seems
It seems like a
just like a
natural
smart
thing.
thing to do from the
Yeah,
standpoint
exactly.
of
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So
but
in that
I
case,
do like Katie, your verbiage that I think that's important. That'd be great if I could at least share that with
I
others.
just, yep, I emailed it to you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Will, when you do share this with the others, would you also pass along Bill's recommendation, which I really like, that each alder would be responsible, or each department, would be responsible for reviewing the prompts and making sure that it lines up, because they know their own meetings.
Right.
And it's also serving as a nice auto-generated meeting minutes for the city person.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I will
great.
definitely. I mean, I think that's the biggest key is
Yeah.
will people want to take the time to do that? And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in that case, I'm going to go on to, one more question before we move on. After our last community meeting, I think I've already shared with you, Will, that I had a different committee meeting. And during that other committee meeting, I made a very intentional, I very intentionally said agenda item 1A. And then I said, before we moved on to every agenda item, I spoke those words thinking that maybe it would help somehow identify each point in the agenda. But now that I see what is produced, it doesn't really follow the agenda.
I mean, it can if I get the agenda, download it to ChatGPT so it can reference it. But I didn't always go through those steps. I did it on a couple, didn't do it on
Got
a
it.
couple, just to see how it reacted to not having an agenda and having agenda. And it certainly followed the agenda when it had it.
Teresa,
Yeah.
just one more quick thing. I know that I don't know if the Monona newspaper has somebody that does this, but I know that a lot of newspaper reporters will go to Wisconsin or C-SPAN or something to look at video to use in their reporting. And I'm wondering if this is something you want to alert the Monona newspaper to in case they have a reporter that would find this useful in reporting on meetings that they can't personally attend, but they're looking for a certain agenda item later on that, might just be kind of a goodwill sort of outreach to encourage the media to notice this
I
and to
think it's
use
an
it.
another excellent idea coming from a reporter. I think you can imagine the benefits of that. I would like that to happen, but probably in the order. First meet with, during one of your is it Monday morning meetings when you meet with all the department heads or something, like have time on the agenda to show all the department leaders and the mayor what this new change is all about. Make sure they understand that it's generated by AI and as such is fallible. Somebody needs to review the prompts. Probably makes sense for that to be the alder or the department head. Somebody could, have minutes. And then what's the rollout plan, including alerting the local newspaper, putting something in our newsletter, perhaps speaking at city council meetings. That would be great. Or one council meeting. All right. All right, seeing no hands in the audience, I'm going to go on then to the next item on our agenda under new business, a discussion about ideas for use of AI. This is just a free form conversation. There's no, well, maybe Will is coming tonight with some prompts for our conversation, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, Anita, or excuse me, Amanda and
Yeah.
Katie already added some good thoughts, and I'm just curious what other people have experienced or done or using in their jobs or however, because there's just so much going on. I
Mhm.
don't feel like I need to be the AI person for the city. I don't even think we know how to handle that, but I do feel like I need to continue to have a good handle on it because it is so pervasive. I mean, I've used it for creating images, for, creating documents, at least a draft to get started, for emails, messages. How do I do this? Give me step by step on this. How do I fix this? All that kind of stuff. Um, but I know there's just so much I don't know that I was just curious what other people
Mhm.
have done and found useful in their business or elsewhere.
Yeah, whether at work or in your personal life, like what are some of the ways that you have used AI?
One thing I wanted to share from talking about the videos is that I do a similar thing at work for meeting notes, is that use the transcript and you can take those and make meeting notes. That's something that I do really regularly. I am not super familiar with creating agents, but if you get your prompts figured out for the transcripts and getting the YouTube chapters figured out, you might be able to create an agent. So you have to do less every time and you just have to, update the transcript and it already has everything programmed in for you. So that's just a thought.
And does that cost money to be able to create an agent, or is that
You might be using the Gemini if that's what the city has. I bet you can have a couple. It might have a limit of how many you can have, but I would think you'd be able to do it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so I'll send you a couple things that we have. We did a like a Google Workspace in general training, but it included like Notebook LM and chatbots and um, the Gemini specifically has an agent that it's basically like it's called a gem and it's super helpful. You just put in like, this is my role, this is what I'm responsible for, all this information, like you give it all of your background and then you almost sort of engage in like a conversation with it, or it can help you tailor, right? Like you could put in the city's mission and it will tailor your responses to all of that. So I'll send you a bunch of links that we have because you'd have access to that as you're in your role as a MG.
Yeah.
Um, so you'd have to log in with your MG email to all that stuff, but you'd have access to it.
Okay. Okay.
I'll share all
So
that stuff with you.
I think Anita's microphone went off there.
Yeah. Yeah, I use it extensively, and I know this is being recorded, so I don't want to go get too personal. I have all of Monona listening to me. But yeah, at work, we're very much encouraged by upper management for that. I use Copilot at work, everything for help with Excel or how to create an agent for SharePoints to search work instructions, that type of thing. In my personal life, I use it every day too. I use Claude and Gemini Pro, everything for, if I read a ton of books, so I'll have a separate chat for each book I'm reading. Like, can you give me background information about such and such? Then it'll give me, and I keep reading, so kind of like a book club in there, or household repairs if something breaks. Different chats for everything, or new hairstyle or whatever. You can have chats for everything. It's for my car, car repairs, all kinds of things. It's pretty much eliminated for the most part Google searches for me. And then I've just started to use Notebook a little bit. That's really great for projects if you want to upload a lot of PDFs and get some analysis or help with creating slides. So it's just really my overall motto for AI is to use it to work smarter and think harder. So I'll periodically ask myself that as a cross check when I'm using it. Whereas versus if social media, if I ask that question, there's never a time social media helps me work smarter or think harder. Almost never makes me think harder. AI, pretty much always, when I'm using it, it's really helping me think harder, learn more. Book recommendations are ideas for things, saving money in household repairs, help me figure out how to unclog the dishwasher, all those sorts of things. So it's a great resource, both at work and in my personal life. So, and I know we're just getting started with all that AI can do. So,
Wow. It's so interesting, Anita. You started off by saying, you work for an employer that is encouraging you
yes. Oh,
to
yeah.
explore.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And my employer is doing the opposite
Oh,
because
really?
we are all about security and the risks.
Yeah.
And we
Oh,
want,
yeah. Yeah.
we want to
Of
make
course,
sure that we have all of, we have
of
policy
course.
documents and acceptable use. But just by your, being encouraged to play with it, you've learned
Oh,
really
yeah.
things.
Yeah. Of course.
That's why I
Of
feel
course,
like
we
it's
can't upload, we don't,
Yeah.
you can't upload sensitive,
Yeah.
HIPAA and all that, but beyond that, yeah, they're like just, the attitude has been just follow your energy, what you want to explore. So it's helped me greatly with Excel and SharePoint and that kind of thing. And yeah, so it's just a indispensable research assistant or having somebody next to me that's an Excel expert. So there's been times I've spent several hours in a day just trying, okay, I want to do this certain metric in Excel. And you have to give it a lot of prompts. And in the AI, in the settings, you can set it to tailor it to how you want it to respond to you. So I'll say, this is my job role and so forth. And it helps me if you use analogies or that type of thing. So you're not going in cold, it has context. Or you can like upload your resume or any other context you want to provide, So you have to give it context and ask a lot of questions. So it won't necessarily make you work faster, but it'll help you work smarter.
And
So,
ultimately, maybe not faster, but the end product is
oh, much
much
higher
better.
quality.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learn a lot. That's always one of my favorite things. So it really killed Google searches. It's really killed my interest in any interest I had in social media, you know, because it's just so much more focused learning in all my many chats in Gemini and Claude. So
That's so interesting.
Dave, I know you've used it quite a bit for
Yeah, I just saw
different things.
Dave join the meeting there. Dave, we're talking about how people use AI, whether at work or in your personal life.
Well, one question that I had for Anita, listening to her, maybe she already covered this before I um, came in, but if you're using what I've experienced with AI is if I'm using I've only really experimented with the Chat GPT, but if you're using a certain AI, uh, Gemini or Chat GPT, does it, like, I've noticed it learns about you as you go. So if you consistently use the same platform, it references things you've already done. It will. I've used I used it one day for a very unique thing that Joe Martin and I were doing for WVMO. And now when I use ChatGPT, it asks me, "Is this for your radio show? How can we make this, question your, and it might not be pertinent, but it really gets personal. You're not starting, it seems like you're not starting from scratch when you're using it. It builds upon whatever it is you're doing. So um, that's one thing that's really impressed me is, and something to keep in mind if we're, selecting a tool or getting started is that it seems to grow along with you and keep track of, build on the foundations that you're um, putting through it.
yeah, if you have the paid like Gemini Pro, it can reference your other chats. The free versions, not as much unless it's a Claude will in the free version if it's a project, if you create a project
Yeah.
and have chats within that. And then I will be strict with it, saying I don't want you to do any searches online. Here's my 500-page PDF of my notes from Evernote about this topic. I want you only to ping my PDF just to efficiently do, because I use Evernote extensively. So it's just been a gold mine. I'll export a notebook from there and say, okay, here's 10 years of my notes about this topic. What are the top themes? But I only want you to search my PDF. Don't know going out in Google. So, yeah,
You
so you have to
know,
be specific like that. But yeah, it is helpful that when you have the paid versions, it can do that for the context. Yeah.
so I don't have a paid version, but in order for it to remember who I was and what I was
Hmm.
doing, I had to register. And then at a certain point, it said, you have 3 questions left
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
before I'll
Yeah,
make
Hmm.
you pay for
that's
my
another
ad.
thing that's happened to me for sure. You're
Oh, you have
done.
a
You
limited
can't
number
do
of
any more.
questions?
Yep.
Oh, you've reached your limit and now you,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. And
But
I,
you have
I
to do quite a bit. I mean,
and I wanted to tell you, like, you should have told me I had to ask smarter questions if I was limited.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps just to have shorter chat. Once a thread becomes quite long, you'll hit the threshold quicker, I've noticed. But Gemini Pro, I have the Pro edition, so that doesn't happen to me. But
yeah, I was just listening to a podcast this morning about how these CEOs and founders of a lot of these AI companies are leaving because it's moving so quick.
mhm,
They don't want anything to do with it because there's no safeguards, and they know
mhm,
nobody's putting safeguards in.
yep,
And they're talking about how it's just manipulating people by keeping track of what they're doing and then answering in ways that either gonna scare them and or give them false answers, but more of what they're looking for because they can tell those are the answers they want to hear. So they give them those answers. And I mean, I don't know exactly, right, how it all works, but manipulating them and then of course just um taking gonna take some jobs away for sure. So it was interesting. It was on the New York Post, New York Times podcast.
yeah, there certainly need to be guardrails, especially with younger, like with children and younger people. Yeah, for sure. There need to be.
But that is the interesting part because I heard that too in the fact that they don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Like they can't tell you the code or how it came up with the answers. They can't build the steps back to how it produced what it produced. They don't know anymore.
Right. Like it's creating its own brain quicker than they can keep up with it type of thing.
Yeah, like they wouldn't be able to tell you how it got that answer. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't there like a sci-fi movie about the robots like suddenly being so smart and then they turn into the bad guys and then
Well, what's that old one where it was like, do you want to play a game?
yeah, I mean, and that was like years ago. That was
Years
crazy.
ago. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
so long. Yeah, this is fascinating and terrifying at once. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
interesting.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's why I feel like also we can like like your job you said is discouraging it, but
Yes.
they're gonna hit a
Right.
threshold where they're
Mhm.
like,
Of
we
course.
can't
Yeah.
discourage it
We
anymore.
can't
We
put their
have to
head in the
use it
sand.
because
Right.
we just have to. We're gonna
Right.
we're gonna end up losing money and we're losing this or that if we don't start. And
Right.
that's kind of where I'm like, I don't want to be on that end or Monona, or at least where
Yeah.
I'm at. I'm not far enough along, and all of a sudden I'm
Mhm.
trying.
Well, I mean, I work for, a government program.
Right.
So it's, there's the, how do I say it? Like guarding all the data, and making sure that it's always secure and that nobody can get to the data and, the prosecutor and all the very sensitive, criminal justice data. It's, or even like, how does a judge make a decision, and is there bias in, AI?
Right. Oh yeah.
And it's
Well, that's
so
why the city is
interesting.
a little skeptical too, and
Right.
why,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
There's a documentary on that about AI having a bias
Yeah.
on Netflix right now. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a thing.
But if
It's the
AI has
thing.
a bias, doesn't that mean that I mean, it gets it from us, right? I
Mhm.
mean, we all know that we do, right? So of course it will also,
Yeah, just
know.
like the social media algorithm has
Right.
intense bias. Yeah, there's algorithms everywhere.
Yeah. Right. Like I have a bias against lima beans. I don't care. I'm not going to eat them, but anything else? No?
No, I appreciate you talking about it though, because it's a thing, and
Mhm.
it's not going anywhere, and it's only going to exponentially get more crazy.
Could I ask, we've talked a lot about how people use it in their personal life. Do any of you in the room have ideas for how the city could use it? I mean, like, we've already talked about how meeting minutes can be streamlined. We've already talked about how this committee, I mean, to me, that seems like the most obvious first thing that it could be used for. Maybe you take the contents of a web page and you ask for it to be condensed or, remove duplicate information, things like that, or those were the first ideas that came to my head. But I don't know, Anita, you seem to be the
Yeah.
the whiz kid in the room here.
Minutes for sure, maybe even a
Minutes for sure.
newsletter.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
the newsletter.
Or maybe
Sure.
like with editing it.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But
Mm.
definitely minutes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, I wondered before if maybe we could use it to scan the website. Like sometimes for the newsletter, there's certain sections that we have every week that we don't always hear from every week. And it's like, if there's an agenda out there for that last meeting, or there's notes on that section on the website, you might be able to fill in gaps where people hadn't submitted their stories.
So you're saying like we feed the agendas from each of the committees, somehow have it scan the agendas for ideas? Is that what you're?
Yeah, you could scan it just maybe every month just to see if there's a difference, or if it's like, let's say sustainability didn't submit a story, but maybe there's an agenda that you could summarize something from that meeting.
Yeah.
And put it in the newsletter.
Anything else? I have no problems with wrapping up kind of early. Unfortunately, Amanda, there's no beer garden to run off to. We get out early for a change, and it's just a
It's coming though.
dark, dreary night. Oh, Bill, you had a question?
Well, the only thing I would add, and Will, I guess mostly for your uh follow-up in working with other city departments and so on, is that whatever utility AI has for people in doing their jobs, just make sure that there is a human quality control element built in here, knowing that AI is still highly prone to just make stuff up. Um, I've only dabbled in this. I don't know anything about AI that anybody else that's read about it on the internet doesn't already know. In fact, whatever I know about AI may have been generated by AI. I'm not sure. But in dabbling with this, I've entered prompts to yes or no questions that I personally know the answer to be yes, and AI returns an answer of no. So whatever is done with it, somebody who should know the truth and should know the background and the facts needs to fact check AI before anything goes out to the public or before it becomes sort of the basis for any official city policies or actions.
Absolutely. All right. In that case, I'm going to move on, and I've lost the agenda. There it is. Are we ready to move on to the next item, number 7? Reports. Any reports to share with us, Will, from work that you're doing?
We are working with Mesba on more business profile videos. So they have compensated us for 4 videos. So we'll be working on 4 videos. We just recorded one today for Polaris Professional Coaching. And then we'll be at Salvatore's Pizza next week. So that's exciting. Those are a good story, obviously, right there on Monona Drive. And the other one we did a few weeks ago was for the Lake Point Community Center on Lake Point Drive there, right by the Quick Trip on Broadway. It's right around the corner. So that's always a good story when helping out nonprofits and those type of things. I'm in discussions with Kara Erickson, who's the executive director of the the Friends of San Damiano. Um, we are discussing how WVMO can be the kind of the band, music, stage, lighting component of their concerts on the shore this summer. If that's feasible, if it makes sense for everybody, what that would look like, and um, being a part of booking the bands and those things. So fairly early stages, but moving quicker because if they're going to do it, we need to really get a hold of bands now because they book up quick. Um,
Yeah.
I felt like there was one other, bigger thing, but I don't think there's anything major that's going on. As Joe said last month, there is some new shows that have come on board, so WVMO has a lot of music programming happening, and we've continued to do a pretty good job. Joe's continued to do a pretty good job of keeping the underwriting coming. So, it's nice to have some revenue coming in and knowing that we, um, even in a small way, are putting some money back in our fund balance that had been drained over the years just from not having any extra revenue coming in. And yeah, I think that's for right now, that's where we're at. And we continue to do what we do. Brennan's doing a lot of high school stuff. Um, we're still recording lots of events at the school. and we're still doing all the city meetings. Getting employees for the city and school meetings is always a challenge. We have 3 students right now, or I should say 2 students at the high school right now that are working for us doing these meetings, and one that is graduated 2 years ago now, or at the end of this year will have been 2 years. So 3 is not bad. You usually want to have 4, maybe 5, so people can call in sick or whatever. Um, so we're working on trying to get somebody else on board before the summer, so we have some options for the summer. That's usually when it gets a little scarce.
In my notes from our meeting in January, we were talking about, ideas for making the newsletter better. I'd like to continue that on for our conversation in March, if that's okay with everyone. But I do have a quick question before we adjourn. Just, are there any other folks who have ideas for content of our March meeting, things that you would like us to talk about next time we meet? Please know that you're always welcome to send those to Will or to me, and I'll get those to Will. I wonder about the newsletter. Are we having trouble getting content from the departments? And perhaps there's a way, if the answer is yes, perhaps there's a way that we could enlist the help of our city administrator or mayor or someone to sort of like work with the departments to, I don't know, have them submit 2 or 3 stories a year or whatever it might be, right? So that you're not digging for that information. All right. So our next meeting then will be, let's see, so today is the 12th, second Thursday of March is also the 12th, March 12th, 5 o'clock. I have a question. How is the 5 o'clock start time working out for folks? Is that still the best time of day that people prefer to meet? Okay, all right, excellent. In that case, I will take a motion to adjourn. Maybe, or
I
maybe
move-
we'll just
I move to
stay. Maybe
adjourn.
we'll just stay in the meeting forever. That'd be awesome. So yeah, from Anita she's got the Anita move to adjourn. Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second.
Second from, was it Katie? Is that what? Or was it Amanda? Okay. All right. All in favor of adjourning at 5:57, say aye.
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 None are opposed. That's great. Thanks, everybody. Always really nice to see everyone. Great discussion. See everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.